Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. Everybody have a chance to read the minutes of the last meeting. And is there any additions or corrections?
I'll move to approve as written.
Cindy Ham's last name is spelled with one M, not two.
I will move to approve with correction.
Okay. Been moved by Amanda.
Second.
Second by Cale. All in favor? Approved. Sheriff's report. Cody.
Okay, this time we actually got an email. It's all in the agenda, but we had 107 things happen in St. Francis in the month of March. There's two on here I have not gotten an answer to, that I'm sure you guys are asking the same question to me, and that is utility work. I asked Eric what that meant, and he can't answer that question, so I don't know what that is. I think it has something to do with the cold weather snap when we did some different things and stuff, so I think it's just a general term. That could have been what it was too. The meter case as well, we don't know how it got classified as utility work, but there's two incidences of it. I don't have an answer for that, except for the computer thought we were doing utility work of some sort. No, it was kind of slower than normal month with that cold snap and everything, but it's starting to pick back up. It doesn't really show in here because it's not really a city call, but we have gone on three committal transports in the probably last month, which is a lot more than what we normally go on. That's probably about 6 months worth of trips to Larned all within 30 days. So I don't know if we're going to see an uptick. I think some of that is you could use 100 different reasons, but I think it comes down to we have no resources out here in Northwest Kansas for people preventatively in mental health, and it's always reactionary, and it just was a time when there was a lot of calls to it. So I don't know if that's going to be a trend we're going to keep seeing, or whether it's just a one-off 30-day period where we had a lot of mental illness crisis situations that we had to respond to. But and that's spread throughout the whole county, Birch City, St. Francis County, and everything. The thing is when I say we had 3 mental health transports and committals, their decision-making process is very minimal in committing somebody. So if I say we have 3 committals, that means we have probably like 8 people that were taken to the hospital for screening. Not everybody goes in for screening gets committed. So that was quite an increase over the past. So we'll keep an eye on that trend and see if that's something that's going to keep going. So, that's all I really have.
Anybody got any questions for Cody? Yeah. If not, do you hear a motion to accept and file the sheriff's report?
So moved.
Moved by Larry, second by Cale. All in favor? Approved. Thank you.
Do you need me for anything else?
No, thanks. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Before you go, do you have everything out of the police department that you're...
Everything from the doorway we talked about forward, yes.
Okay.
The jail cell and the evidence locker in the back, no. We were going to put that door up back there. So if that answers your question. But yeah, everything from where the proposed door was to be placed to the north, ours is out of there. So.
Perfect. Thank you.
So, Oh, I guess that goes, did I mention that last meeting that we had some drawings and stuff up and getting a bid on redoing some room in the old jail. So we have room to move the old evidence over, so we just don't have the physical space right now. So when we get that project done, then we'll move that stuff out and be done in the back part except for using the holding cell. So, okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Cody.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I guess since some of them aren't here, let's go down to the trash waiver application renewals.
So some of them are notarized. I had the mayor come in and fill out one of the newer applications, although I made one modification to it even. I noticed on our old applications we didn't have any place for a phone number or an address or an email, nothing. So the new form is going to be most similar to the one that Marla Ross did. And I've included at the top of it the actual section of the code that has to do with the trash waiver, and removed the requirement for the notarized signatures. And all of these are renewals. They've all had them before. So we've got the first one, you can't really read the name. It's Chris Lloyd, Pete Jensen, storage building. JR's got a storage building. Dave Yost, storage for his airplanes. Scott Schultz, personal storage. Cynthia Sherlock, same thing, as building that's used just for storage. And same with Marla Ross, personal storage. And I think the one that Chris Lloyd has is just an empty lot, that they come up like a week and park a camper there or something.
They have a building up there?
Well, I think Gordon Ross has bought the building, but they're in the process of buying the building. I don't know if that's all done yet. But there might be a building up there too that he used to have sitting up there, but he wouldn't have had trash anyway because all he kept in there was that little Ford Bronco, and I think everything else he's got rid of now. So yeah, he doesn't have anything up there. So to speak of, that there would be trash up there. So, well, do I hear a motion to approve these waivers?
So moved.
Been moved by Amanda. Second by Cale. All in favor? Approved. Okay, let's move on to Western State Bank.
They are just wanting to have their Easter egg hunt and are asking for the council to waive any fees, rental fees of the band shell. And pretty much that's it. They're not having anything that would require necessarily insurance, so they are going to ask for the roads to be blocked off between the two parks, and they will need access to the band shell for electricity. And it's going to be on April 2nd from 4:30 to 8 p.m. And so if you approve it, the motion would just need to include that you're going to waive the fees,
Waive the fees.
and there's something else, and the insurance.
I'll make a motion to approve the application and waive the fees and insurance.
It's been moved by Amanda, second by Cale. All in favor? Approved. Okay, we've got a mobile home park license application.
Finally got this one turned in. These folks bought the one that Tommy Peter had over on South Valley Street, and we finally got the fee, and we finally got the application. So took them a few months to get it all together, but that's what that is. And they're planning to move some more trailers in there. They'll be in touch with JR about that. But right now,
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the mobile home park license?
I'll move.
Been moved by Larry. Second by Cale. All in favor? Approved.
South Valley. Is that next to Homestead? North of
Yeah.
Homestead?
Well, it'd be,
Yeah, north of it.
it'd be
yeah.
north,
That empty
yeah.
lot, yep.
Yeah, okay.
well, I guess we can go to old business. Would the Preston think we start at 7:30?
I was sure I told them 7, but
Okay, so I guess we can go to old business, the rental of the police department space. We've still got some discussion to do there. And
Were they planning on coming? You had said that somebody may be planning on coming.
yes, so Carla called me this afternoon late and hadn't touched base with you. She's asking us to table this decision until the next meeting. She is gathering information from the Greater Northwest Kansas Community Foundation is actually helping her with this, gathering information from other communities that have similar relationships, and she'd like the council to consider what other communities do with similar situations.
And that kind of came up from, I thought it was appropriate to call Carla to let her know that these concerns had been brought to the attention of the city, so we weren't discussing that without them having any idea about it. So I had called her and told her what, that we'd had some input from the league.
Yeah.
So,
Has everybody been able to read what the league said about the concerns about it and so forth and stuff? And, yeah, it does, it does present a problem, or possible problem. It's not a problem, possible problem. So, I mean, we just got to weigh it out and then decide if that's what we want to do. And so, I know that it's probably about a 50-50 deal there, what we should do and shouldn't do, but I guess we'll wait and table it until they can present some places that are doing it, and then that might help us make our decision on how to handle it. What do you got to say about it, Lauren?
I don't know that it's 50-50. I mean, I don't think, based on the public purpose doctrine that he referenced and based on his response, I think that at minimum there needs to be rent charged. I mean, not just nominal rent. I mean, it needs to be at least somewhat in line with the fair market value rent of an office space on Main Street.
which in and of itself raises the question because there's office space available for rent. And I'm only pointing that out because the city's had conversations before where when you find yourself competing with someone who has something, you shouldn't be doing that. And I don't think there's anything written on that. I think it's just an ethics question.
Right.
Do you want to do this? So that was one that I had actually mentioned to Carla as well, that, unless you pay what a fair market rent is, there's favor involved, or at the very minimum, the optics of it. So anyway, didn't mean to.
Right, no, and I mean, it's the concern, my concern on that would be, there's the concern of, is there an appearance of impropriety or is there not, which is what was addressed in the letter. But I mean, as far as, what others do, the public purpose doctrine is governing. I mean, we have to abide by that. And that's, if there's something, what we're doing should serve a benefit or should serve some public purpose. And so, I guess I just, in her conversations with what some other places do, perhaps they want to come to the board and propose an alternative. I mean, I see both sides of the argument that, while I'm just pulling a number out of the air, I don't know what, you had given me some names of people that rent out their spaces on Main Street. I don't know what that is, but an argument to be made for renting it at something, perhaps a bit of a discount, is that currently it is sitting empty, and it's really not doing anybody any good being empty. And so if we could be raising some funds by renting it out for something, then, that is serving a public purpose. So there is an argument to be made there. I would suggest, I guess seeing how they do it and having them come with one or two proposals of what they would think, I think would be a good way to go. But I would highly advise against, even if other cities are doing it that way. I mean, if we've been advised against it, even if other people are doing it, we shouldn't do it. So I guess I would like to see, rather than have them say, well, this is what everybody else is doing, I would like them to have a proposal for us. I think that would be, if they're looking into how other places are doing it, there's no reason that they couldn't come up with one or two options. I guess I don't see that the burden should fall exclusively on the city to come up with how we're going to do this. I would like to see a couple proposals. That's all I really have on that, if we're going to be tabling it.
Can you relay that to Carla, that when they do come to the next meeting to have, whatever they're finding out, to make proposals to us too, so we know what they're thinking, because it might be we don't agree with it. So
I think whatever she does, she'll try to get it to us before the meeting so that you all have time to review it and think about it.
Well, whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
As long as she, like Lauren said, they'll give us a couple proposals of how they'd like to have it done, and then we can weigh those out.
Okay. I could do that.
Okay. Okay, the next thing was the industrial park property sale. And
I have prepared a quick claim deed to Mike Green and Cindy Ham. I have the caveat that this isn't a tract that has ever been surveyed. We don't have a survey on file for it, and it's not a legal description that has been used before. They wanted a 100 by 80 foot tract as opposed to the 70 by 80 foot tract, which was before. I'm basically required to make the disclaimer that I don't do title work, I don't do surveys, I can't guarantee this legal description. It is, JR tells me it is available. He is also not a surveyor, and he also does not do title work. So, I mean, it's up to the council. We're not guaranteeing it. It is a quitclaim deed. We're not saying we guarantee we own this. We're saying if we own it, you can have it. So, I mean, it's not... I'd be a lot more concerned if it was a warranty deed, but I am required.
we dropped the ball on that thing, because after the meeting, a couple days later, I called Lila and I said, oh, we didn't have in there that they need to do all this paperwork for us. They've got to do the deed work, they pay for it, because we sound the ground so cheap. Well, guess what? We haven't done it to Tim Riley. We didn't do it supposedly to even Bill Farland. But I know when we first started this whole thing, it was in the minutes that sound the ground is cheap. The people buying it would do all the deed work and all the... So I don't know how we go back to that. Or, I mean, maybe you know, where Mike and Cindy thought they were going to pay $2,500, and now it's what? Yeah.
Well, yeah, literally, we're going to have more in your time than what we're selling the ground.
Right. And then the other problem is that I did about 4 hours worth of city work this morning, and I didn't separate it out because I didn't know that was a... I mean,
but
I'm
that's
sure...
how it came about when I
Right.
got the number when we was talking about it. It's like, we're going to have more in legal than it is to get rid of this, and then we remembered that, in fact, we did usually require, all the city wants is the check for the amount, and everything else is paid by the purchaser. Now, at a minimum from this point forward, it should go that way, because it's like we're paying somebody to take it, or paying, you know, it doesn't make sense to do it this way. And it wasn't ever intended to be that way, but we have missed it.
And I never thought of it that night when they made that offer and stuff, and we told them we'd get on it. It blanked till 4 or 5 days later. I went, oh.
And those costs would need to come to the city. They would need to come through the city.
The what? I'm sorry.
So those costs would need to come through the city, like as city attorney. So I'm preparing the deeds for the city to sign. I will still put that under the city's invoice, but I will do a separate one specifically for when I do a deed preparation or when I do any work associated with a sale, because it'll need to be collected for. Because if I can't bill someone who's not my client.
But I don't think it's in this instance we can go back, and we've already agreed to
Right.
to this ground for this thing. I think from going forward, that needs to be part of the protected covenant that you have to build, and you also must pay it should be in writing that it's that way, because I think we just always said that's the way it is. You have to build within 6 months. It was wrote up at the time that you had to do that and that you would pay the legal fees, and we just missed that on the last 3 transactions.
And we've given them a year in this one because they have to renew the contract. Okay, I was going to say. Okay.
But going forward, do we want to, they have to use Lauren to draw up a legal description? If they want to get a survey...
They have to reimburse this. Oh, well, I guess
they can hire their own people to do a survey and come up with a
or
legal
reimburse
description.
the
Or
city for
reimburse
it.
us.
I think it could be an either or, but there has to be costs associated with transferring.
I would say if you're going to go into a survey, I mean, surveys can cost $500, $1,000, $1,500. If they're doing a piece of ground that needs a survey, that needs to be paid up front and then the survey will be completed, and then they can pay for the deed preparation.
They just pay the survey if they want it surveyed. That's what I'm saying. I don't think that we tell
Still
them
do the-
they have to go through us and reimburse us. If they want to get it surveyed and/or have somebody draw up a deed for them, they pay for the.
I would caveat, I would caution as to that, to having somebody, I mean, we have to review it to make sure it's right. And so, I mean, if the city is signing something, at the point that I have to go through and review the deed and make sure it's correct and go through all that other steps, it's going to be just as efficient for me to prepare the deed than the city knows.
Maybe it's just easier just to
I mean,
say
I think
the
that
city will be reimbursed for the city attorney costs for the transaction.
right. I mean, because if they want to have someone else prepare the deed, that's fine, but they're going to pay for someone else to prepare the deed, and I would suggest having me review it to make sure you're not signing more than what was agreed to or signing something that's erroneous. That's why I'm here. I mean, if you don't want me to, I don't have to, but I would just suggest, I mean,
That would be simpler than the choice, and we don't have a lot of
Yeah.
ground, and
Yeah,
we're
there's
dealing with this.
what's left
Hopefully
down
you just
there.
remember it.
What's left in there isn't too good a property, so. Okay, going back to this, quit claim deed. Is there anything else we need to do on that other than to agree to this? $257.78.
Did you bring your notary?
I did not, but what I can do is I can grab that and take it with me, notarize it. I just have to witness you do it. I don't have to notarize it at the same moment. So I can witness, I can watch you two do it, take it with me to my office, and have Janet run it over first thing in the morning. I pulled it out and put it up. I pulled it out and put it right next to my purse so I wouldn't forget it, and I grabbed my purse and walked out the door.
I would make a motion to approve the sale of the property to Mike Vincent.
Okay, so moved by Amanda, second by Cale, all in favor? Okay, it's approved.
Okay, hold on just a second, I'll fill this out and then, what is today, the 22nd?
I'll get to see this in the wrong one.
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on to property cleanup.
I don't think we really have anything going on it because we just have a continuance on the Swigert property.
Right, then we have the Paulson property that I haven't gotten a return yet. I haven't gotten a return yet. So I may have to send out another. I have to go through. I have to go through the steps, and then if I can't make sure that they've been served with the first one, I can't go through with the second step. And so I'm waiting on that. And I think what we'll probably do is, if I don't have it by the end of the month or next month, we'll just get on it. I mean, I don't think at this point with the timing, the soonest we can get them in court, the soonest we can set a court date is going to be for March 15th. Or May motion day, the May municipal court day is going to be the earliest we could set the matter with the amount of time we need for the letter, for the summons, and the notice required from the summons. So I'm not going to let it go past that, but I'm not in a terrible rush to send out a second one.
Kind of on that same subject of the cleanup, the Lambie property comes up frequently and continually. And we've had a discussion, I can't remember whether we had that here or not, but about identifying the violations that are there, giving notice to abate the violations, and then to point out that these specific violations or instances, if done again, would be met with a citation. Because we keep just going through this cycle. Now, I talked to Cody, that's what I went and caught him about, because I know Amanda and I talked about this. Had we talked about this at the meeting or not? This is kind of, I think Amanda and I kind of came up
It's
with
been a
doing
while,
that.
but yeah, it's time to talk about it.
Because we just go through the same motions, and then it kind of dribbles back. And I think if we find it in a given state, point out the violations, and that's one of those things you have to be careful about, because if you point it out to every single thing you can find in the book, then you're looking at every property in town. There are very negligent violations on this property at any given time.
Has there been communication in writing on this before?
No, it has been the sheriff going to him as the city's representative, saying this is, the blatant violations, be it blocking the street or having things on blocks. But we keep doing it, it keeps moving, and it keeps being a different thing. And he's probably been there, I don't know how many times since
But
he's
there
been the
was
sheriff.
a letter actually sent
Was there?
when I first got on,
I think so.
because it was sent, because the property is in his mom's name, and so it was sent to both him and his mother.
That is correct. It
So
was
there
very
was-
long ago.
yes.
Was it sent by Mike?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was a lot of the stuff that was back behind the fence that we figured there was oil being spilled on the ground back there and all that stuff back at that time. That had been a few years back. And
Fairly different, but yes, there was a written notice given once, so.
Okay. I think that what we need to do is identify, I guess what I would propose is that it go, one, be in writing, and two, be from me. And that it say, these are the ones that have been identified multiple times. They keep being remedied and then occurring again, and we're not going to go through this anymore. If we find you in violation, a citation will be issued or a summons will be issued, and you will appear in municipal court. Like, this is your final warning. We've warned you about it enough. We're not going to keep warning you about it. You've been put on notice. You know better than to do this. The next time we see it, we're going to take a photograph, summon you to court, or we're going to take a photograph and have the sheriff issue you a ticket.
well, last year when he got the permit to put up the building, he made the comment that he would, after he got the building up, he could get some of those vehicles off the street. Well, he got a few vehicles off the street, and then he added, wherever he took something off the street, he added something right into that spot, so he never took anything off the street.
So to me, it's extremely obvious what the primary issues are. It's inoperable vehicles on the street. I mean, literally, that is it over and over in some form. Sometimes it's just a frame. Sometimes it's just a piece of the vehicle. Other times it's unlicensed vehicles stacked up together. But that would seem to be, if those were not there all the time and constantly being moved, I don't know that that's
Also,
what-
an engine or transmission sitting on the sidewalk.
Sure.
They should be there.
Okay. So I don't think we have to get complicated with this, and this. The inoperable vehicle and storage on the street and sidewalk really is
The
the
issue.
thing, I think.
For tiles of broken glass just laying in the streets, it's not a good thing here. Especially next to where their kids are doing the gymnastics thing. Right there by the curb, big piles of glass.
Okay. So inoperable vehicles, debris. Let's look up the specific code of it, and I'll look at it too, to make sure there's not something else identifiable. Get it to you, have it delivered by the sheriff. That'd be good.
Any other properties we need to visit about?
I don't think so.
The Zweger matter was continued until May because they need to paint. I think paint is the only thing.
I think that literally is it.
And it's continued until May because we're not going to be unreasonable and want to ask them to paint presently.
Okay, well then let's move on to project spending. Anything on that we need to keep pushing or revisit about?
I do have one thing. We met with Kelly Fruin on some insurance things, forms that he needed filled out and questions, and one of the things was on the liability insurance for additional insured, and Kelly is advising us that we do have get something in place, a policy, so that contractors are required to carry insurance equal to the city's for liability and also list the city as an additional insured. He's recommending that we get that done. if the council's okay with that, I will find similar policies and from other communities and write one up.
Okay, everybody agree with that? We need to get that done. Okay.
Okay. We can get that off the list.
Anything else on there?
I've
The power
not-
plant boiler. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
The power plant boiler, I brought it up, I wanted it on this list just so it doesn't get forgotten. Extremely high priority, yes, old power plant, it doesn't work at all without preheating the engines. Again, I got an updated proposal on it, it's $58,305, and that is to remove and replace the boiler to keep the engines warm and runnable. That one is down there, it's about 20, and it's a little over 20 years past its expected life.
Well, the thing is, the price is not going to go down.
And it actually, I think it actually went up, but I don't remember what I quoted the last time. I just asked him to rewrite it, redate it, so we could have the proposal. And the need for it's only going to be more.
Yeah.
It doesn't currently have leaks, but it seems to do it at the most inopportune times.
And the thing with them too is how soon will they get out there, even once the guy.
That's why I want them submitted and
And so I don't know if we need to put that on this project spending. I think it's something that we need to move forward with. If we can financially go ahead with it, I think we need to go with it.
And it's on the electric utility. We should have enough spend authority to do it and the cash to do it.
It'd be out of equipment reserve, I suppose.
Could, yeah.
Only. With the electric cost, I'm a little nervous about, but we can make it work wherever we have to spend it out of.
Well, I just think it's nonsense, but over here.
We know it's broke. It's actually caused rolling blackouts in our town before, and it's been a few years ago that happened when this failed. That's what caused that to happen. We had the generating capacity, but we couldn't get it started, and we had to give power here for a bit there, and that's, what a nightmare that was. This fixes that. So I would strongly recommend we move forward with it.
I do too. So do I hear a motion to move forward and go ahead? And move by Cale. Second by Amanda. All in favor? Let's get it done. Well, we can cross that one off there too. Hate to spend money, but it's going to catch us if we don't. Okay, is that anything else?
I have a follow-up to contact the Jeter firm on the access road matter in April. It's going to be a bit of a project, I know, for him to kind of get it all around, so I didn't want to rush him. We give him about a month and a half to see where he's at, and then contact him. So I'm planning on being able to give an update at the second meeting in April.
Okay, street project.
So I just talked to Casey with McCormick today. They don't have a work schedule as of yet. Of course, we're working with Tyler Hilmer. I think it's the last meeting I reported we have a water diversion permit from KDHE, but no, we don't have a start date or anything in place right now.
The contract came in today. They submitted it to Lila. I got it at about 10 a.m. I was in the middle of something else. I have not had a chance to go all the way through it. It is about this thick. So it's a little bit light reading. They called Lila and told her to have me look it over, get back to them with any revisions if we have any. Otherwise, but they think it's good to go. I can't get through that by 7 when it's given me a 10 and I've got appointments. So it's on my to-do list. I'm probably going to do it over the weekend. But I don't know. Lila was considering if we could get the council to approve the signature on it pending attorney review. So if I don't find anything with it, if I don't find anything concerning with it, then authorizing it to be signed. But if I do find anything, we'll have to table it until until April.
And this is McCormick, the city contract?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and
Actually, I want
you want to look at it too?
to, absolutely.
My worry with waiting, I didn't know if 3 weeks was going to be an issue getting these signed and sent back. You think 3 weeks, because that's when the next meeting is?
No, that won't.
Oh,
That
okay.
shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
They don't have a start date. I don't think they have an issue with
Okay.
that.
Okay, well then I suggest we just table it until,
Okay.
the next.
You can just email it to me. Is that how you receive it?
I can scan it in for you,
Oh,
yes.
whichever.
I would just suggest we table it until the next meeting, then so JR has a chance to look at it and I have a chance to look at it before.
It is 76 hard copies, so
Oh, okay.
I can either make you a hard copy if you want something to take notes on. That's what I've done
I
for Warren.
asked for a hard copy so that way if there's anything in it I can circle it and make a note, and
Okay.
it's the one thing I will like in paper.
Okay, we'll let you guys review that and then bring it back to us. Okay, I guess we'll move on to pool report, Larry.
I'd like to request about 2 minutes of executive session to go over non-elected personnel for a manager position. We're meeting Thursday night to do lifeguard interviews. We currently have 17 applicants for lifeguards.
That's amazing.
So, and then we'll make a decision on assistant manager that night too, and then I'll bring it back to the council for your approval. That's all I really have at this point.
Okay, do I hear a motion to accept and file the pool report? Moved by Amanda, second by Derek, all in favor. Approved. Building permits?
I got 2 bills and 1 chicken.
Yeah, I had 2 chicken permits. Did you not get them, or?
Yeah, Crystal Parsons.
And Margaret Lister's as well. I'll get another copy in your
That
basket.
made the deal. That's what I said.
And then there was also a new one, like 6 weeks ago, that was not a renewal. It was a brand new one for Jensen that hasn't come to the council yet.
Okay, that one I looked at. Yeah, my feeling, that was Travis.
Yes. Yes.
Any other ones for this committee soon?
Yes.
Good. Yeah, as is the case on those, that was actually a disputed property line. However, it was decided in a court that it was there. So I actually took that permit to Brent just to make sure that's correct, to have him sign that, because once it's built, of course, it's shared property. He didn't have any problem with it. Just only mentioning that because that was actually a court case that decided where that property line was.
Okay.
And that was with the previous owner.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the 2 building permits, and then there's also the 1 chicken permit? Moved by Larry, second by Amanda, all in favor? Approved.
I can take those. You're done with those, aren't you, JR?
Okay, we'll move on to superintendent's report.
I talked to Brock last week about the steps that was brought up by our insurance company for the city office up here. One of the things that was talked about, I don't know if we did at the meeting, was possibly eliminating those outside steps on that thing. It's just a lot of things to cover. You might take a look at that. He obviously doesn't have a something in place. I told him I wanted a price with and without those outsides or any other proposal they might have for that. But that's just a lot of steps to maintain this. So there's a center one, and then there's also steps on the other side of those tree planters. Seldom used, but yet they have to be cleared in the middle of it. So here's the top of it. There's more access point. The electric. Okay. So I've been corresponding with Sunflower in reference to the contract and the omission of emergency generation. We are not anywhere near agreement. I thought I might at some point, I know it's tax time, but get some legal assistance on the interpretation versus what the contract actually says. There's just an omission of how to deal with it, and the reason is it's ours. It's not theirs to call on. However, we're forced to generate. Now they want to deal with it as if it was accredited, which is dealt with in the contract, but we come up short on being reimbursed properly if that's the case. So I guess I'd like to take a little bit of Lauren's time to just have her look at the contract, understand how the billing situation was, make sure she's in agreement before I send further correspondence back. There's no doubt in my mind you will, but I want you to agree with it in case it needs to go further. I mean, literally, you'll see where we stand on it pretty quick.
Do you want to send that to me and have me take a look at it, or do you want to get together so we can go over what's gone on and your position on it, and then I can take a look at the contract with that kind of frame in mind?
I can send you what correspondence we've had and the contract, and some of it's going to require some explanation just in the billing and stuff. I'm not sure. I'll send you what I have, and we'll start from there. You can just take a look at it.
Sounds good.
Okay. The next subject is the recycling. We thought we were going to have two different proposals. Since the last time I think I spoke to the council, Sunoco, which is who we send all the recyclables from Colby, as the recycle function in that way. They're no longer proposing doing anything but taking the cardboard and the chipboard, which means we're forced to go single stream. That's the only option we do have. In doing that, we've contacted Stutzman. When I say we, I mean Roger Jensen's been assisting along the way. As far as the dumping fee down there, the schedule, there won't be a problem doing that. I've proposed to the county and now proposing to the city that we use our own trash truck to see how it works. That's what Colby does. Roger and I are going to go to Colby. That's exactly how they do it, and see how they collect, how they compact, whatever, how they do it. Our glass and our paper, shredded paper, will go directly to the dump. They want that product out there for cover. And then the cardboard would go to Sunoco. If we stay with Sunoco to take the cardboard, we get to keep the balers. Otherwise, we're looking for other equipment. So basically, we have one thing to try. If we don't like using the trash truck or need further equipment, that'll be through the county, because they'll be getting reimbursed from the sale of property in Colby. The building already sold. It's $225,000, so that gets distributed amongst the three counties that are still involved. That being said, we want off of that as soon as possible so those assets are liquidated and not used towards labor of something that is not sustainable. I mean, we want out sooner rather than later. So I guess with the council's blessing, I would go forward with planning to stop taking it to Colby as soon as we can and taking our maiden voyage to Stutzman, which is in Hutchinson, as soon as it's practical. The trash truck is being checked out by a mechanic now to go all the way through it. It's been used very little for the last 8 years, 10 years. So we have a way to get started, and I guess we'll see where we go from there. There should be funds available to do whatever we need.
What would you say goes from glass?
Glass and shredded paper. They use it for cover, and I don't quite know how they do it. They crush it, and I know they liquefy the paper to make that little covering that they use. I don't quite know why they want the glass, but I know they crush it, and they use it somehow. I don't know.
And what will we haul down to Hutchinson?
So that would be all the plastics. That would be everything except the cardboard, the chipboard,
Plastic,
the glass,
aluminum.
and the paper. So the aluminum, we actually had checked into a local guy on the aluminum just to see if we could keep from, because you're just mixing all that stuff together. He's not interested in taking it or purchasing it at this time, which we don't get a tremendous amount of aluminum because it's recyclable. You can actually receive money for it. But yeah, we'll be starting it out in one way and maybe changing how we do it as we go along. We just don't know. But Colby should be a good example of what we're going to be doing. But yeah, it'll be a Class B driver's license, air brakes. Of course, everybody, but one of our guys down there has it. Dave has also suggested that they would be able to have drivers certain times of the year. It should only take 7 trips a year based on the time. So it's not like it's a lot of trips down there. That is if we can haul as much as Colby does on their truck. So again, we're just going to try it out with what we've got and see where we need to go from there.
You could just dump it in the trash truck and using that to contract it?
I think what we'll actually end up doing is dumping in a 6-yard dumpster as opposed to trying to dump those things in that little bag. Yes. Hopefully we wouldn't have it up there and doing that until we know we have a complete load so we can get it all crushed in there, mixed up, and hauled away, because I still don't like the optics of that. But I do like the fact that the cardboard's going to a place, the glass and the paper going to a specific use. What's left is a lot of air. I mean, it's plastics and, like I say, the tin cans. Clothes will no longer be taken. We've already talked to the thrift store about that. So, changes in the recycling, I guess. So, do we have any issue with our insurance? I don't think we do with the county employee driving a Class B truck.
I don't know how to check.
We need to know that. I don't think we do. We already go back and forth with the equipment, but that's all inter-county use. This would be intrastate, I guess you call it.
I will find out. Probably just need his driver's license information and stuff, but
I don't know where we're putting them on the road. I want to make sure that's okay.
Class B, you said?
Yes.
We have to check with Threads on the insurance too. Basically none of our equipment leaves the city limits.
So, as it says, with insurance, other than mileage to be driven would probably be the only issue on that because it's already, since it's interstate, it doesn't require the Class B physical. So I know it can go, we just might have to change how much it's used. That would change what it is. So can you check with
Yes.
Kelly on that? Okay, thank you. Scott and I had a good conversation with Tom Keller today about the river walk and the pond in reference to figuring out something to be able to dedicate time and resources to that project. At one time, the city had an employee. We was able to dedicate a fair amount of time to that. That has since passed. And what I think what we'd like to do is do some research into contract laboring a portion of the work there. I'm not sure. I think the Department of Labor would be the place to start with that. We've done contract labor in the past. I just want to make sure we know what we can do. What we would hope to do is pay a monthly, I don't know if it's called salary, we contract labor to an individual to do specific things at the direction of the city. I know we've done it in the past, but I just want to make sure we get headed in the right direction on it. We do have budgeted funds with the city. We also have potential funds from the Keller family. I guess I wouldn't want to talk amounts, but he did indicate they would be willing to offset costs, which would make that where we can maintain trees. That thing needs the most attention when we have the least resources in the middle from spring to fall. And that's why Scott and I are thinking it would be a really good deal to be able to contract labor and to make sure that stuff gets done. Because when it's right when it's getting used the most in everything that we just don't have the resources to do that stuff.
So just that time period?
No,
Or year-round?
no, year-round. I think this would be a situation where, any given year is different, but planting trees in sand is a bit sketchy to begin with. If it's dry winter, they need water in winter. They don't, even though they're dormant, they can't sit there and dry out too much. Of course, we get some warmer days, so no, it would be 12 months. Obviously, the majority of the work would be within that 5 to 6 month period. Like Scott and I was talking, this is all to be figured out. We just had this conversation today, but obviously probably 80% of the work is in half the year, but yet you need that time dedicated. Maybe make the contract labor where for 6 months out of the year, it was these dollars to take care of this, and then the other 6 would be a different compensation, so the money matches the labor. That's what Scott and I was getting around on it.
It looks like it's a workable plan now, since Tom put out that number to us, and the biggest thing is keeping those trees planted, because it's hard to keep them going if you don't have somebody out there, especially to start with, right, at least 3 days a week, watering them things when it's hot.
As part of that conversation, it was mentioned that we shouldn't get trees unless we could dedicate the time to it. I think with what they're talking about potentially offsetting the contract labor for, I don't want to wait on trees. I mean, that thing gets used so much. We need to just force this issue and get the contract labor in place to take care of it. And in doing that, I'd like to replace the trees this year that had died due to lack of watering throughout the year. And I think we are thinking there's probably about 12 of those. A lot of the problem, in my opinion, some of the problem with the trees we had out there is they're too young. They require too much attention between the deer, and they're just real delicate to the temperature fluctuations in the water. They're just really difficult. I mean, it's a lot of time spent in the dead anyway. Several of those did, while we were watering them, fully dedicated, not make it. So I'd like to put some larger trees in there, as long as we're, going to commit to doing this contract labor. And I don't know where they're putting that money up. I don't know how we wouldn't be committed at this point. So I'd like to go ahead and, either with the conservation, I know the biggest trees they have are what they call 10-gallon. I don't know what size that is. If those aren't big enough, I do have another tree resource. But I think we do need to move forward, either with the conservation. They're at $90 for their 10-gallon trees. I'm hoping to go check with them tomorrow. But if we don't go with them, then of course we have a little bit more time to get the trees. But I would like to have at least be able to spend a couple $1,000 at the conservation, because that's Wednesday's the deadline for ordering those. And if they are not big enough, we will just wait.
That's probably the best price you're going to find, too.
I think price is, but I'm still concerned with how big. You think so? 10 is?
Yes.
If it's that big, that's fine. But some of those we put out there were under an inch. They're just sticks, yeah.
Those are 1 gallon for them.
Are they?
I'm guessing that's a lot of what they
I don't think they were 10 gallon when we was planting those, when we planted these originally. I think they did 5 at best. But I don't know.
I bet they're running from that. I don't know.
Okay. And we do have, I guess we have funds, whether it be in Parks Recreation or the Keller funds. I think we have 5,000 in that thing. And we do our maintenance out there based on Parks and Recreation mostly. We attribute time to it, but I don't know that we take that money out of there for the labor, do we? I don't think so. I think that's just the budget amount. So if I could just get the authority to spend $2,000, I don't think it would be that much if I go with conservation. But that way we'd have the choice to do the conservation trees.
And somebody make a motion to go ahead and purchase trees up to $2,000 for it.
I'll make that motion.
Been moved by Larry, second by Dara, all in favor? Approved.
Would you restate what you were talking about as far as the division between what cities can do and what contract labor?
We don't know that for sure, but at this point what I'm thinking is the city would continue to do, obviously, a chemical application for the trail, and we would continue to do the Eurasian milfoil and the larger area mowing.
You're talking about town per se? You're talking on the east side?
Just around the Kelly Ponds, is really all we normally do.
In the past?
The paths are poisoned, they should be. We've gone to not doing any mowing on those, just killing it out.
We thought that that contract guy, the biggest deal would be making sure the trees are watered. Then he could also probably do some weed eating and stuff,
Trash pickup is.
trash pickup, limb pickup, that kind of stuff, when he's out
And
there.
identifying things that maybe would require equipment, like the large tree or something. So we're looking for a watchdog, essentially. Hoping to find somebody that's actually, maybe that has their own weeder, that has their own mower, so we don't know. That's what we was talking about, having the board get together, get a job description for the contract labor figured out, and then figure out a way to put it out there. And part of that is knowing what we need to require that contract labor, whether, I wouldn't know if they have their own equipment, if they need to have insurance. I mean, there's just some things that's a little bit different about this than what we've done in the past with contract labor. So whatever we need to figure out we need to do on that. If it's just a no-no for them to use equipment without having expensive insurance, then maybe that throws that out. So it's a little bit flexible, but it's even what we can do.
And
Does that
since,
answer your question?
since we're talking about this, I suggest that we go ahead, we've got Dave Fleming on the committee, Larry's on the committee, and we will now officially add Cody Pine to that committee. Everybody,
Dave Fleming contacted me a couple of different times about, he thought Cody would be a good fit.
and then we hope we keep Dave on there too.
Yeah, I don't know what his long-term plans
I
are.
don't either. So that will be our committee for telecom. And JR will go to some of the meetings or all the meetings, and Tom will be at the meetings.
We just need a motion to approve his appointment.
Moved by Amanda, and second by Carol, all in favor? Okay.
So in doing that, you was the interim person on that. So are you going to interact with this moving forward as, what's your?
I mean, I can come to them if you want me to.
I just know you utilize the place a lot and have a personal interest in it, so I guess we can talk about that.
Yeah, I can come to them if you want, but
Okay. At the last meeting, we discussed the theater, going ahead with the design on the theater, so we could then hopefully apply for grant funding. That was based on $4,000 being awarded now and $6,000 potentially later from the foundation. I talked to Chris Miller, the Jake, whatever, I'm not sure what that architect's company name is, can work through Miller and Associates. In other words, we don't need that money up front. It's not going to be any issue at all for them not to be paid. I mean, they pay as they go kind of work. Based on that answer, I called Carla. She's on the foundation, discussed with her about the funds, making sure we wouldn't be putting anything at risk by starting the project. We wouldn't be paying the amount, but then applying for it while it's an active project. And she said there was no problem with that. It got close on time. It was last Friday when I found I figured both of these things out, so I didn't give the go-ahead to move ahead with that architect, but plan to do so based on our conversation at the last meeting, unless anybody sees a reason not to.
everybody agree to move forward? Okay.
So I will sign that agreement that will bind the city to the agreement with the architect. It's through Miller and Associates. They'll be there all the way through the process as well. It's just somebody that they use. The last thing I have is I went outside to talk to Cody, and I missed on the agenda two items, being the Alumni Association and the Western State Bank. Is there any expectation of the city to do anything, just to crew, block streets, make things available, cones, that kind of stuff for those events?
Western State Bank wants the streets blocked off between the two parks, and they run and be able to get electricity out of the Vanchville, right? And that's on April the 2nd.
April 2nd.
And-
Okay. And they flagged off or just cones? A lot of times, most of the time, we'll just go and we'll just put the
funds there.
I think, yeah, just so it's marked out. It didn't say, just,
I don't think they
I
said
think
it.
keep that comes across both ends of the street would be good.
You said April what?
Second. Coming up quick.
4:30 to 8. And Gail tonight, I think he was just planning to come. Basically, he doesn't have his whole application completed yet because they're really still in the planning stages. But I think he just wanted to make sure that the council was good with them having a beer garden. That's their plan, is to have a disc jockey and a beer garden. And that's it. And I think he just wanted to make sure that that was okay before they continue on with those plans.
On having an organized meal this year.
Not, at least not at the park. Yeah.
We're already past those stages, Larry. Way past those stages. I was last year. Yeah, so is everybody agree that they can go ahead? It's just going to be Saturday evening down at the park. It's like from 8 to 11, that they're doing a DJ and a beer garden. They'll set up earlier than that, but that's when it's going to happen. And so,
We don't really need a motion yet because until he brings in his special event permit, but he just wanted to make sure that before they put all the time into it.
and we've always blocked off that weekend for the long night weekend anyway at the park, so we've always got that on the calendar, so I guess they'll be back with more information for us when they get it. Okay, what else do you have?
That was it. Thank you.
Okay, do you hear a motion to accept and file the superintendent report? Moved by Derek, second by Larry, all in favor? Approved. Attorney report.
Most of my stuff was talked about before. I wanted to just kind of let the council know that in the transition from having Cody Workman as the clerk of the municipal court to having Lila as the clerk of the municipal court, we've revisited some past matters that have come up, delinquent payments of fee agreements or outstanding warrants which haven't been billed, and we're going over that and taking a little closer look. I think in the transition from Mike to I, some of that may have gotten lost in the shuffle. I know that a couple of cases were brought up that I don't have case files on, and the stuff I got from Mike, and so I think he probably closed those because they had obtained a judgment, but the judgment hasn't been paid, so we're working on kind of picking up that ball and going with it. So there will be, I just want to make the city, just make the council aware that there's going to be a little more municipal. We're not having current municipal activity, but there's going to be some municipal activity going on. There's also, we revisited, the judge has the authority to set a schedule of fees for traffic infraction, and they're going to be increasing, in my opinion, relatively nominally. But we were less than half, in some cases a sixth, of what the statutory amount was for traffic citations, and that's based off of everywhere, and so the judge does have the authority to set the fee schedule. So we revisited that, discussed that the judge is going to be doing that. Obviously, it's not in effect yet because we have to get the fee schedule updated and make it available to the public before that can happen, but I just wanted to update the council on that. I don't think I have anything else. I have input on something Lila's going to talk about,
I
but
can talk about it now.
do you want to start? Because I don't.
Sure. Or do you want, let's just close out your report.
Yeah, we'll just close. And so that's what we have. I guess I just wanted to make you aware. My time is going to look like we have a lot more municipal court activity going on, but we've discovered several $1,000s of outstanding payments due from diversion agreements, plea agreements, judgments that have been entered, and I don't know that they've been collected on, and so I'm going to go down that and pursue that, attempting to get those judgments collected. That's what I got.
Okay, do I hear a motion to motion to file the attorney report?
So moved.
Moved by Amanda,
Second.
second by Cale, all in favor. Approved. Clerk report.
Good. A little bit here, let me get my notes. Okay. So the first thing I put on the agenda there that you can click on is the American Rescue Plan. That is part of that entire package that was passed by President Biden. Every community is going to get substantial amounts of money. In Kansas, if the cities are over 50,000, the money will go directly to the cities. If it's less than that, it'll go to the state and then funnel to the cities. Anywhere from 60 to 90 days out is what we're looking. Right now, there is just not a lot of clarity on exactly what's going to happen. What I've shared with you is some information that I got from the League as what we know right now. They're guessing that the communities in Kansas will get anywhere between 30,000 and 100,000, and it's based on population and past budgets. We don't have any idea how much that'll be. We really don't know exactly what it can be spent on. The email that I sent, that I got from him that I shared with you guys, there's some things that they have outlined that it can be spent on, and you can read through that. It's supposed to be directly related to COVID. I will say that we did not suffer a revenue loss, except with the theater, and that's my next thing to talk about. But our sales tax income revenue was actually more in 2020 than it was in 2019 because people were shopping here instead of going to Walmart probably. But we as a city did not suffer a revenue loss. So we don't have any of that. We should be getting clarification on how these funds can be spent. And the funds will come out in two halves. We'll get the first half this year, we'll get the second half next year, and we have until the end of 2024 to spend these funds. One of the conversations that they were talking about was using it for necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. That's it. That's all I know about that is that one sentence. But hopefully we will get more information. That it's a little crazy. There's a link that's on the agenda that you can click on that will take you to the League's website. Scott, I'll just send it to you in an email. If you're interested in listening to one of the webinars that the governor's office held last week, there's links on there for you to listen to them. There is another webinar that I'll be attending, I think it's next week, that hopefully I'll get more information, but right now that's really all I know. We're just going to get some money, and I just don't know how we're going to spend it. Let's see, is there anything else in that? We'll probably have to amend the budget to account for this information. I know they did say that they wanted the money should probably be put in its own account so that it can be tracked how it's being spent, because it's federal funds, and so there will be a lot of paperwork involved with this money. The county will be getting money. Everybody's getting money. So anyway, that's all I know about that right now, but I'll keep you updated as I can. Along the same lines, though, I asked about the revenue for the theater, and they indicated to me that I should first try the other pot of money, which is that Shuttered Venue grant. Applications for that are coming open on April 8th. I have a webinar on that, March 30th, to get more information. I believe it'll be 30 days after the initial applications are open where I can then apply for a grant for the revenue lost by the theater. So it'll be up to you guys if you want me to pursue that. You can tell me now to go ahead and do that, or we can talk about it at the next meeting. It'll probably be May before we can apply.
Is that the one that you thought there was a real chance of it even
I feel like for us, the funds, so these funds are meant for shuttered venues that were forced to close, like the theaters, live theater, movies, museums, all of those kinds of venues that were forced to close. And the first round, you have to show that you've lost 90% of your revenue year over year, and we're way down less than that. And I feel like there's a lot of venues out there that are needing it more. I mean, we were closed for a few months, but we were able to open back up.
And where we're city-owned, and other ones will be
Private
private
businesses.
business, and they'll probably give more of it toward the private business.
Well, I'm not sure that they'll make that distinction between private and us, but it's just, I kind of like the idea of it going to a municipal theater as opposed to perhaps a private business that could use it. I don't know.
But I think we might as well apply. What does everybody think? Well, look at the application and see how much.
How much work it is?
Yeah, if you think it's worth going after, go after it.
And sometimes they have the formula on some of that stuff. You can figure out how much we would even get, you know,
Yeah.
if it was even worth.
I think I looked at that, and it was like $24,000 or something that we would get from the loss, because it was a percentage of what your loss was. But,
If you qualify.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, after I go to the webinar on that, which will be, what did I say, the 30th? Yes, March 30th. So at the next meeting, I'll have probably more details, so just a heads up on that. I've got a peddler's license out there on the share. Now, I want to just kind of reiterate this, but peddler's licenses don't necessarily have to be approved by the council unless they're asking for something like a waiver of the fees. And that's because they should be able to come in and get a license and be able to go out and sell relatively soon. This is an ice cream business, an ice cream truck out of Catherine, Kansas, which is close to Hayes. I got their license, got the background check completed today. They've paid their fees. Everything looks great. I put some information out there. I think I put it out there. I did. There's an article that I shared that was in the Hayes Post about this business. So they're totally legit ice cream business, and just wanted to give you a heads up that they will be doing business here sometime. I'm not sure exactly when, but they're very excited to come, so that's what that's all
Are
about.
they the ones that came before?
I don't know. If they
It does
came
not
before, they
look
weren't
like,
licensed.
it does not look like the one that was driving around town earlier. The pictures in the article did not look like the one that was driving around town previously, unless they've revamped the van. But it drove past my office quite a bit.
They
So.
weren't licensed before.
Mm-hmm.
Did they know that they weren't licensed? Did somebody approach them and tell them to leave?
I think they,
Because they were parked out front here.
Out here?
Mm-hmm.
Where was I? Well,
I
I
thought
don't
they had
know.
came in,
I thought they came in too.
and the fee was so high.
Oh.
And that was right after, like, Nixels came and we decided to.
Yeah, I think so too.
But did they, and they went around anyway? Or they were
No.
going around and they were
I
taking
think somebody got them stopped and they told them they needed to come and get their application and permit, and they came in, and then they thought it was too high, so they left.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Speaking of NICEL, do we need to revisit what we charged them?
It'll be the same. So you guys changed it's now $50 for them for the year.
I realize that, but when they paid before,
That was for last year. It's a calendar year. So the peddler's licenses are for a calendar
they
year.
paid like $200 or something.
That's what it was last year. And that's why we revisited it, because they'd come in and thought that was too high. So when they applied last year, that is what it was. That was the fee at that time. Out there on the share is also the grant award letter that we got for the theater for the $4,000 for that. I'll be resubmitting that this week. And then what Lauren was talking about, I was contacted by Rachel Morris. She wants to, well, I was actually contacted by Melissa Zweigert, but Rachel Morris wants to rent her facility down here on Main Street, Washington Street, and hold a vendor fair. And I asked Lauren to review our vendor license because if you read it, well, I should probably let her talk about it. Go ahead.
Okay, so the email from Lila, which to surmise that they wanted to hold a vendor fair, however, there's the perspective that there's going to be a vendor there who's a camper-type vehicle, and they sell their merchandise from that. She asked if they would need a permit as well. I took a look at the ordinance, which is, I think, 5-101, subsection E, and it has components to it. It defines as a person, whether resident of the city or not, who engages in a temporary business, selling and delivering goods within the city, furtherance, leases, uses, or occupies any building, structure, motor vehicle, tent, or, and then it goes on, I'm not going to read all of them, for the exhibition and sale of such goods. So, my opinion is that at a minimum, the organizer is going to need a peddler's license, or is defined as an itinerant merchant, and anyone who is not entirely confined within that space would also need a separate license if the person is outside that area. I actually don't think it would be outside the reasonable requirements to require each vendor to have a license, because they are each going to be occupying it, and they could each need a permit. But that's up to the council. If they want to count this as one event, as vendors within it, I think that at minimum we need one permit for the space that is being rented and one permit for anyone who is not confined within that space.
What kind of vendor?
Just a vendor fair. I haven't talked to, if Rachel Morris is who wants to do it, I haven't talked to her directly. Melissa just wanted to know if they needed anything, and they want to do this on the 10th, so we wouldn't have time to make any decisions before this is the night we have to do it. So I don't have a lot of information. I'm anticipating it's like the vendors who sell makeup and, maybe Pampered Chef, and I don't know, those kinds of things. That is exactly what I asked Lauren.
And I think that they need a permit too.
They
are people who occupy, use, or lease any building, structure, vehicle. It can be private. Any building is what the language of the ordinance says. And so, I think they need one. If they...
We never have.
It is a building within the city limits.
And then the one that's over here at the church. That was my question as well. And I didn't even question this for the one that was contained within the building. But when they wanted to spill out onto the street, then I felt like, well, that probably needs a permit if they're going to be out on the street. So, yep. Yep.
If they have their own license, student license.
But they need a vendor license.
I just didn't know what to tell them.
I think if the council wants to allow, I think that based on the language of the ordinance, at least one is required, plus whoever else. The council, I guess, can choose to waive it if they want to, but I think that...
Or waive the fees.
That's what I'm thinking. You want to encourage this.
Right.
The gist of this is to encourage that kind of thing, but yet cover your
What if you do?
requirements, so when somebody wants to loophole you on it, they can't.
Wouldn't you require the permit but waive the fees? Well-
But do we even have a permit?
That's a special event permit. They always, because they're using, yeah. And so, but this is mostly inside the building, and that's where I struggled with the special event permit, because it's not on city property. It's not really a special event.
Requires a permit and waive the fee?
Are these people that already have businesses?
I'm assuming like you would be like Pampered Chef, Mary Kay, you know,
And she would be responsible for the sales tax as the event
So they
organizer.
would already have some type
and I'm sure there's companies there, you know.
of city.
From the city's perspective, as far as the sales tax and that goes, it's just my responsibility to let the state know that this event is happening. And that's all I have to do. And then, so it was just a matter of making sure that we're being consistent with our code, but like JR said, not discouraging it from happening either.
Because it will bring people to town.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But you also want to have a bit of a vetting process. I mean, there are inappropriate vendors, you know what I mean? And that's
Right.
the thing that,
So who's organizing it?
Rachel Morris.
I'm not implying.
Right, but wouldn't she?
Oh.
I'm just saying, you know, when you, somebody decides to get to the loophole.
She would know who's coming for it if she's organizing it.
But then also if it's competing against people downtown, but as long as it's just like a once-a-year deal,
Right.
different than if it's every month or something, and then it's really hurting the people downtown that have.
Which is important to word that in that way, one-time waiving of the fee, so it's not expected that if they do it regularly, or if there's an issue with it.
Oh, I see, we're not exorbitant for one day, it's like $10.
Right.
It's only $10 per day.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's 75 for a year. No, it's 25 for a year for in-county, for in-city. 50. Hold on, I have it.
Well,
We have that application right here. 50 for the annual license for current residents, plus the 25, yeah, 50. So it's it's $10 a day. So I mean, it's not.
I think it's more.
No, so it's not an exorbitant amount of fee.
So we're thinking that Rachel is she should have $75.
no.
We waive it, or just do $10 for every vendor that's there.
If we did that, we would be following our,
Right. I think you could say that this is a coordinated group of individuals as a vendor. I mean, the argument could be made that everyone would fall under one license with the event organizer being responsible for it, and you could do one license for everybody who was physically in that space, and then anyone who is not going to go in there, if they have I don't know what they sell out of their van or what they sell. If they have a food truck or if they have a jewelry station that's outside, anybody who's not physically within the confines of the space inside.
I would agree with that, because then you are using the public property, and you are, inside
Right.
that, it's the responsibility of the single permit
Right.
person. Anybody outside would be subject to their own. That would make sense.
That's how it says, if you, the reason, my legal analysis for that is that the statute says hires, leases, uses, or occupies any, and then it lists building, structure, motor vehicle, tent, railroad boxcar, and motor vehicle and tent are separate from building. But that's the analysis I have to go through to make sure we're following this. And so if a group is occupying a building, or they're occupying a structure, and then someone is selling out of a motor vehicle, that is a separate thing than that building, and it should require its own permit.
Well, what building has she got that she's talking about?
It's the old, yeah.
Madonna Stevens.
Oh, it's really nice.
Oh, but that's not Rachel, that is Melissa.
So Rachel's
I was thinking
renting it.
Rachel, okay.
Yeah. That seems to make sense to me, what Lauren has proposed.
Like the craft fair.
You know, to be consistent, we probably, moving forward, would need to do that.
I mean, I don't think $10 would discourage. I mean, I could see if it was, and you can choose to waive the fees if you want, but I mean, at the point it's $10, I think that we avoid, $10 for one day avoids, you waive the fee for them, why won't you waive the fee for us? You waive the fee for, I mean, it's $10.
Yeah.
So, I get if it was, we were requiring a full year, if it was 50, or if it was 75, or if it
Or
was
like it used to be.
200, like it used to be for the
Yeah.
Nightfalls, but at $10 for one day, I think it's going to be the most consistent way to apply the ordinance and just require it from everyone going forward. And obviously, I mean, if the Girl Scouts or the Boy Scouts are doing something and we want to waive the fee for that, I mean, obviously that'll be up to the discretion of the council, but I think that as there are private individuals engaging in this for a profit motive, it would be appropriate to assess the fee. But it is up to the council's discretion if you want to waive it.
Rachel's organizing this, right? I feel like we just have one vendor, or her to apply as a vendor or whatever. She's the organizer. Coordinator, whatever. But only one vendor fee, or one vendor application, I think.
The ones that are on the street concern me.
Yeah, the street people be their own club. The street people.
If you're not in the village, then
I know. So we just need to let her know that if they're going to be setting up tables out on the sidewalk there, they're going to be charged a $10 fee.
Okay.
And then she will be charged a $10 fee for the inside, so
Yep.
space.
Okay.
And if the council's not waiving any of the fees, I don't think a motion is needed
I
because
don't think
they
so,
don't have to
because we're
approve.
just following.
Right.
Okay. Is everybody agree with that? $10 fee? Okay.
There.
Okay, let's go that way.
And then the same will go for the craft show, right? The organizer will do the fee. And
Yep.
anybody else, street people, they would have their own as well.
Yeah, we'd have to be consistent, so.
Yeah.
Is this going to include there's a background check, so there's a $25
Not
investigation
for,
fee.
that's only for peddlers, I'm
Okay.
pretty sure. The background check was for the peddlers, but I don't think we do them on the itinerant merchants, because they're not going door to door.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that was my
Um,
understanding of the
that makes sense.
background check.
I think you're correct. I
I think we had this conversation before. Yeah. Pretty sure we don't need it for,
I don't think we need it. I think we
because they're not
just
going
to-
around, people are coming to them.
I think it's under a different I think it's defined as under a different subsection also. Just one moment here.
I want some clarification, like when the craft show does it and they coordinate with the school,
Mhm.
but the city still has to charge them a vendor for that?
According to this, if they're using a space that's in the city limits, yes.
But it's just going to be $10.
It's one organizer.
Yeah, it's just $10.
Who's organizing? Who does organize?
I'm sure you know.
Yeah, it's under a different section of the code.
It used to be,
Yeah, a lot of swagger.
Yep.
Because if we did it for the one, because on the same day, they have the one over here at the church. So it'd be the same kind of a thing, it's a church, but it's still a building.
And
It's only $10, so.
If Tammy Rice organizes it, doesn't she already have a business here? So she wouldn't be considered a peddler or a...
Well, she's just the organizer of the event, though. Because she's not selling her.
you get back to an event coordinator who's
Yeah.
going to be responsible for it.
Yeah.
So then, like,
It also says, if I may, the person so engaged shall not be relieved from complying with the provisions of this article merely by reasoning of associating temporarily with any local dealer, trader, merchant, or auctioneer. So yes, if she has a business here, no, they don't get around it. It's specifically written into the ordinance.
So, I'm still confused there.
So if she has a store,
Well, if she's using the building for the city, right?
right,
But if she had a food truck, it'd be different.
she has a food truck, could be just,
That's a peddler, well,
Unless
that
you
would
already
be
have a
the,
licensed food
because
license.
they're going around, right?
It'd be
right.
totally different. Yeah. Then it'd be a peddler.
And then anything outside of the building,
Separate.
separate, yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so then like car show, which is not gonna happen,
Well, that's a special event, though.
and the motorcycle museum will be a special event.
Mhm.
You're saying car show's not gonna happen?
Nope. I'm not very happy about it.
Can't get people to step up?
We turned it over to them 3 years ago, and we took it back from them. And we ran it out to 20 years, turned it over to them, and they were all gung-ho, they were gonna still have it next year, and they liked up the roadside park, they were gonna have it, give. We never heard nothing, so when I got back from Costa Grande, I did some checking, and no car show. Nobody wants to do it, so.
Okay. All right. Just a couple more things. Just want to remind everybody
I'm
about,
talking
oh,
about something.
you okay?
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Just remind everybody about the community cleanup April 10th. The bill was in today. Wanted to hang up a flyer, but the flyer was not really a flyer. It was rather, he might share it with you, and if you tell me to put it up, I will, but it was not just information about the event. There were comments about, personal comments. It wasn't really a flyer with just information about the events. There were personal comments about the trash situation, is how I would put it. Not appropriate for a flyer to be hung up on our bulletin board. So I told him I wouldn't do it, but he could talk to the mayor. I told him, and this is up
Yeah,
to
you
you.
don't need to be, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Yeah, it just needs to be fired up. They're gonna do it that day.
Right, and I put it on our website. You might see it on our event calendar. And if you guys want, in support of this event, for me to create a flyer, it would take me maybe 5 minutes to do, and I could then hang it up and give some to him if you want me to do that. It's
Yeah,
up
I'm
to you
sure on
guys.
You'll want to do it.
I can do that.
And then you put on there that I won't be there, so. I knew when he mentioned it that night, April the 10th, I went, oh, I won't be there. I'll be gone.
I think he's expecting participation. I will go. I hope some others
I need
do.
to let him know that I won't be there,
You guys want me, it's a Saturday, April 10th.
April the 10th.
At, oh gosh, now I don't remember. I think it's 1 o'clock.
Yeah,
I think
Well, before they did in the morning, but yeah.
I think it starts at 1.
Yeah, I think that's what he said.
Any meeting somewhere?
Up at the high school.
Yeah. Audit is scheduled for April 27th, and we're busy in here, of course, getting everything ready. They're going to do kind of a, last year it was all remote. This year they're going to do, I think they are going to come for 1 day and try to get as much done remotely as they can, but I think they will physically be here for 1 day. So they may be tagging one of you for a fraud interview like they usually do. So, yeah. So April 27th. And then the only other thing, I got an email late this afternoon from America's Farmers Grow. In the past, we got a grant from them for fire department. This is a donation, basically. The winner in Cheyenne County wanted to remain anonymous, so we don't know who it is, but they requested that the grant be given to the city for the band shell, and it's $2,500.
Good.
So, yeah, that's pretty cool. I think that's all I have. Wait, one more thing. Can I back up on the agenda real quick on these two? I just want to mention these two grant requests that are up here. I had asked them to come to talk to you. These are the 2 projects that are going in on city property. And I just want to let the council know that I did talk to the Dane Hansen Foundation, because one of them is going to be one that would, if the city applies for these grants for these projects, the projects then become city projects. They are city projects on city property and especially for the Hanson Foundation, they don't do pass-throughs. So it would be a city project if you guys agreed to apply for grants for it. Not to say it's not a good project, but you just need to be aware it would then be a city project. The donations that they would receive, everything would have to be run through the city, paying the bills, overseeing the project, everything would be a city project.
I've already visited with Bob about it.
Oh, you have. Maybe that's why he's not here tonight, but...
Well, this morning I said I'll see you tonight. That's why I'm surprised he's not here. I don't know why he's not here. But I did talk to Bob about it, because they have collected $26,000. And they've got enough to do what they originally thought they would do, is put up this gazebo and stuff, and then they was just going to put up these metal type boards and then have vinyl lettering put on everybody's name on it. Well, now that they got this far, they'd really like to go to the granite, which if you go to most every city that's got a memorial like that, they're made out of granite. And that's going to cost about $24,000 more to do that. But then it's like Lila said, they'd have to fly through us. They're going to have to give us those funds. But once we know they have the 26, we can use that as the matching stuff. And I think it's going to be a big plus to go on through and apply for these grants, because they already have raised $26,000. And I mean, if it came to where they didn't get the money, which I don't think that'll be the case, then they'd go back to the game one, and then they put up this other. But that vinyl lettering, they predict it's a 7, maybe 10-year lasting, and then you got to do it. But if you get granite and it's etched in there, it's a life. So I think anybody. So anyway, Bob knows pretty well what's going to happen and stuff, and I thought he was coming tonight. So.
And the other one's kind of the same thing, except for that one, I believe, would cost considerably less, and we would try to apply directly to, if the council wanted the city to apply. But again, it's a city project. But we would apply to the Community Foundation probably for that one. But it's the same kind of a thing. It becomes a city project. So.
And the questions that arise from that then, since it's a city project, contractors, they're required to have the insurance. I mean, it changes requirements. We went from, and it's not by intent by any means in anybody's part, but they come and said, we want to build a dog park, and we already have the funds set up. You're thinking, yeah, it's a dog park. Well, this is way late in the game, and now we're applying for the funds that they're actually, they know they're secure, but it's the, I guess, the disconnect between how you get the money, which has to go through the city, because then we have to monitor, I mean, in some form. I mean, it's our project. So it's just, I guess, getting our hands around the process. But that'll be the way it is any time it's on city property. It is a city project.
And this all relates right back to rent over here. I mean, it's all tied together. I mean, and so applying for, yeah, we did.
Yes, we did.
But it's all applying for grants in the foundation and through the city, and so that's why we got to weigh all this stuff out.
Now, the Hanson Foundation, the one that would be for the VFW Memorial, would be direct.
They're doing both.
I'm sorry, what?
I think they're going to do 50-50, half at the Hanson and half at the foundation.
And with us applying for both of those?
I think that's what their thoughts were. But they might try to go for the full amount through the Hanson.
See, so that would actually be, because of some conversations I've heard, is they like to fund bigger projects. And if they've got matching funds for half of the project, the likelihood of Dane G. Hanson.
That's not good at all.
Right.
Funds for other.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think that, yeah, and I sent them an email just to make sure that.
Yeah, go there first.
Yeah.
They replied back. I just sent them an email to make sure that there was nothing inappropriate about this process where another, and they said as long as it's a city project and we are managing the funds, we are applying for it, and we are taking care of it, it is our project, we can apply for the funds. Well, that's, yeah.
Well, I agree that we might as well have them try for the full amount through the Hanson. And the Midwest that they were going to do, we tabled that because they're already giving out the monies here in April for the spring stuff. So the next one won't be till fall. So we're just going to wait a while to apply for that if they need it. If they don't need it, they don't need to apply for it. So.
And then we will have the impact fund grant and the community, Early Gen grant. Like June. Check it out.
If,
You can apply for those.
if the council decides to allow this to happen, as far as the grant writing goes, from my perspective, I'll probably do like I've done with the one that Larry's doing, give them the list of questions that have to be filled out, the narrative and all of that stuff, and request that they provide that information. And then the grant writing for me is considerably less time if they are actually doing that part of it. Because otherwise that's a lot of time. That's a big time.
Yeah, and I think that's the way it should be.
It should be, because they're familiar with the project. They know what their project's about, and yeah. So I think that's all I have.
Okay, do you hear a motion to accept and file the clerk report? Moved by Amanda, second by Larry, all in favor? Approved. Okay. This will be council comments first. Cale? Larry?
The only thing I've got is, like Lois said, we are going to be applying for a grant for a small amount of time to help the concert in the park. 2 years ago, the city council and the city graciously offered a letter of support for that event. Would you guys be willing to do that again? Basically all it would be is we take that letter that we had 2 years ago and then modify it to, for this event, instead of for a one night.
Same man?
Same thing.
What's the date?
28?
28th of what?
August.
We've got the long run locked in again.
Good.
We've got everything played. We're just a little short on funds right now. We're close. But I think we'll get there. Guys are excited about coming back, and we've got sound guys coming again. We've got hotel lined up. We've got some other people step up and do some things, some neat things, as far as some donations here and there and different things. So we've been very tickled so far. It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort and a considerable amount of funds to pull it off. People have been very generous.
If you're planning on applying for a liquor license or a Booze Garden again, I will donate the time to that. To do whatever the council approves pro bono, so that it doesn't cost the city anything, and it doesn't get passed on through to the event.
I really would appreciate that. I think that's all I have.
Okay. Well, then we'll stop here and go into your 2-minute executive session.
Can I do it, since I requested it? I don't know, I'm asking.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session for 2 minutes to resume at 8:48 for non-elected personnel.
Hiring?
Hiring.
Which everybody?
And by Cale.
Say that again.
Second.
I'll say that. I need somebody to, are we on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I need somebody to approve the hire of Kelly Milliken as the pool manager as directed by the pool board.
So moved.
Second.
And moved by Amanda, second by Cale, all in favor? Approved.
Thank you.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Larry?
Amanda.
Will the real council please stand up?
JR, could I